Okay, my friends, Roger once again going to make this quick, easy, and simple. That is what's called the Heelstone, duh, because it is a foot. And guess where that is? Stonehenge. Now, that foot is pretty good size. These are the toes, quite obviously. The ankle right up here is broken. There is blood here. This tissue is absolutely identifiable. That, I believe, is a good source of blood, a vein and artery probably right there in the same place. This is 100% identifiable. Either it is or it isn't what I'm saying. I will show you mine that I have here that is every bit as big as this and maybe bigger and is actually in better condition. Mine still has the fingernail. I have a fingertip. I have other parts of it too, but the fingertip still has the fingernail and the fingerprints. Let's take a look. First of all, it's all DNA certified. What I'm about to show you, and there's 3 of them I had done, along a fingertip that was a middle size, and then a gigantic one, 3 feet long, 36-inch long fingertip. And they were DNA certified using PCR DNA. This was 5 years ago. They came back positive and dense for the mitochondrial DNA. And that's all I had done was a cytochrome B gene and the D-loop region, the mitochondrial. And it came back Homo sapien. And this was not a cheap test, and it took a while, and it is certified in a certified lab. So that is what I did, and this is what I am showing. And you could see Heelstone, that's a foot. I don't care what anybody says. If you can't see that, then you're just a denier. Okay, my friends, this is a fingertip. Now, it's about 30 inches wide, something like that. I believe it's 36 inches long. That is literally the fingernail, and it's not in bad shape at all. This is the part of the bone that bumps up against the next bone, and they're like completely separate. And they are completely wrapped in their own fabric, which I'm going to show you in the microscope in a second, because I have the fingerprints, which I will show you in a second as well, the grip skin. Grip skin is quite identifiable, and you will see it. It's very, very easy to see. And the rest, I mean, if you can't see that that's a fingertip, I don't know what to say. You can see that that's the bone tip at the back. You know, you have to do a little anatomy and understand. And where this is broken off, right at the fingernail, it wrapped around, and I have it here, and I will be showing you in the microscope. And you just when you look at your own fingertip, the edge of your finger, it just got a little bit of skin, and then zoop, it goes right into the grip skin, it's called, which is all the ridges and so forth. We're going to see that right now. Alright, this is grip skin, very specific, has a ton of little holes on the bottom, extreme amounts of fabric in this tissue layer, and then a little bit of blood. This is it right here. This is exactly the same. It is grip skin. Alright, now, right here was where the fingernail came, and I smashed it off of that. And this is where the grip skin starts. Just like it will on your hand, right on your finger. You look at your fingernail, I think it's a thumb, and there'll be a little bit of skin, and then it goes right into the grip skin. And that's it right there. And these are the sweat pores. Exactly like there. There is no difference, none whatsoever. And you saw the fingernail. Now, we're going to look at this fabric, because every biological thing there is has a fabric. It separates it from everything else. Inside like even this goose head, you see that? That's the feather pattern in a goose's head. This goose head will have a very similar biological fabric that coats it and keeps everything out from the inside. And even in your lungs and your heart and your kidney, your bones, there's a bone. That bone will have the same sort of fabric. And it has a wrapping. You see that? They called it tunica in the ancient days. And I think they call it periosteum now, which wraps, all of these bones are wrapped in individually. Just like somebody wrapped them up individually. Very, very exciting stuff. And because it's a mud fossil, it's not a bone. They say, oh, that's not a bone. It is a bone, absolutely. And it is as defined of a bone as you can possibly get, because every bit of it is here. However, it has what you call transitioned. And what that means is, I believe this was a product of saltwater floods. What happens in a saltwater flood is there's extreme amount of chemical invasion, a lot of molecules changing, stabilizing, because they have a salty soup to work with, because salt it transfers electrons around very easily. It breaks bonds and does all kinds of things in chemistry. Salts are very invasive, and I can show you a lung that proves this without a doubt. Now, this was in salt water, as all of them I believe were, which kills, it eats into the bones and it eats into the ferritin, which is the bloody stuff inside your marrow and so forth, and it converts it into, like, it looks like mud. So I call them mud fossils. Now, wait till I show you this lung. But you saw the fingertip, and that's the fingerprints. That's the fingerprints right there. It's what it is. That's the thickness of the grip skin. That's the thickness of this skin right here. All right. Now, let's take a look at something else. All right, here's what happened. A friend of mine, Gary Evans, found this in a saltwater mudflat in England, and it was submerged probably literally forever in salty waters. Well, salt waters preserve fleshy tissues and bloody tissues. They do, because we are salty water creatures. All right, so here's the rock. He brings it home. It starts to dry out. And then he opens it up a little bit, and here's what he finds inside. It's a lung. Now, let me take it a little further through this, because this is the salt water. In the extended saltwater process, you end up with, it deteriorates, it destroys the tissue so desperately inside that when it dries out, it just becomes dust, and I will show you that. But in my world, they don't become dust. They become hard. They become hard as rock. All right, now, so everybody that's been following me understands that the vein blood, which your lung is going to have, the vein blood coming in, which is black in mud fossils. It would be blue in your body because it's deoxygenated. The blood, which is the red stuff, has to take on another oxygen to become red. And that's what it does in these cells that are in the little holes in your lung. Your lung is built like this. This is a lung. Inside is all that red blood. It goes all through these passageways, and the air, it passes by all of these little holes, and then they call them squamous cells. They're little flat cells, and the air makes an exchange in the transition metal, which is iron. Iron in your blood, FeO2, FeO3, is a transition metal that transitions oxygen in and out. And look at this. Look at this. This is amazing. Look at how perfect. I mean, that thing, you could almost do a transplant. And now, I don't know how long that's been there, but I would imagine a very, very, very long time. I mean, you did see it a minute ago. Now, let's see what happens to it as it dries out completely due to the salt invasion. And it's only due to the salt invasion. All right, so it had to be there for a very long time. Now, Tyson is also working with things that have salt invasion. And he's found, and I believe he's doing a project on this, about siliconization of tissues. All right, and he'll explain the whole thing. He's doing some good research on it. Anyway, that's a lung. I don't know. Nobody can deny this. Now, let's do some microscopes. All right, now don't forget, this is the lung as it's starting to deteriorate a little bit. But this is the outside surface. You look at that and say, well, that's just a rock. Well, here's what's inside. And now, watch this. After, I don't think it was more than a couple of weeks, where lung after exposed week or so, there it is. There's Gary holding it. It's done. This case is closed. Now, why is it like that? Why is it this when just a week or so ago you could have transplanted it almost? The reason is because of salt invasion. I don't have that situation here. All my stuff is clean of salt. So all I can say is my stuff has stabilized absolutely 100%, as good as his. Because here's a lung. Look. Here it is. Hold on, hold on. This was DNA certified. This is pleura that's absolutely flawless. That's where the blood came out of. This is, I mean, it's a lung. That's no question whatsoever. I have another one over here that it just gushed blood all over. But this was CAT scan, DNA tested, anatomist checked it all out, the whole 9 yards. And all my stuff is basically all been checked out and pretty well validated. Now, but you see what's happened here? That was lung tissue just a week ago, a couple of weeks ago. That's because the salt invasion has literally destroyed the molecular adhesion within the body tissues. And there's a lot of chemistry to talk about, but that's the bottom line, is that it's so invasive to these attached molecules that they sort of just separate out a little bit, and they're, you know, they look like they're right in there, but they're really not. They're not attached the way they were originally, and then as soon as the H2O gets out of there, they just fall apart. Well, they just turn, this is going to be dust, absolute dust. All right, I always tell people to make it a little bit moist. You see how the detail we can see here? Let me see if I can make a little finer detail. You see how perfectly detailed that is? Now, and we go way down inside here, we could see all these little blood vessels? Those are the little holes for the blood vessels. Black is, they call it basalt. It's not basalt. You see it's tissues that are just under what they would call feldspar, which is the fabric of life. And that is that big toe, big fingertip. Now, this is the moist part. Now, let's put on the not moist part. And here it is right here. You see the difference? You see how you really don't see, it's just doesn't have the pop that the other thing does. Now, let's see the broken spar. You see how different that looks? But you can still see the tissue, and those little black dots, they're everywhere. And they are, I believe, part of the interstitium. Because this is somewhat eroded. It's not completely perfect. But I'll tell you, it's not far from it. But you see when it's dry like this. Now, just to give you the difference, here's what it looks like when it's wet. It's exactly the same spot. It's exactly the same place. All right, now underneath, we can see this. This is where it's bonded underneath to the flesh. But between there and the top is extremely dense grip skin. Very, very, very tough stuff. This right here is where the where the fingernail was. Right in that area. Let me home in on there and see if there's anything we can see that makes any sense. You see how perfectly curved that was? That's where the fingernail was. Going right around like that. And it goes down here, and right about here it starts to get into the grip skin. You see how tough that gets right now? All that really gnarly looking stuff. Between the fingernail, which is right here, that nice rounded curved spot right there, We go away from the fingernail. That's the skin. You see, that's the skin. We get a little further away, we start to get into the grip skin. Here's the grip skin. This is the tough. Now, I'm going to get way down to where we have fingerprints, which are down here. And I mean, that's just what it's made of. It is tough stuff. And as you go deeper, it gets more and more of the fibery stuff. You see it? And I showed a grip skin. They call it barite, I believe, which is nothing more than grip skin. See all those fibers? There's a mat of fibers in here. That's a mat of these fibrous things like this here. That's what's called grip skin. Now, that's my specimen I have here. Oh, you see that? That's the side of the goose's head. That's the goose's head. Those are feathers. That's the side. And this is the top. Right there. Alright, that's the top where the feathers were like the thickest, but when you go around to the side, you get that look. Which is almost the same as the big fingertip. Now, watch this. I'm going to put a little water on there. Whoops, watch what happens. Now, oh, man, I get this thing out of my way. I hurt myself. Now, this, alright, now, give it a second to settle down here. I'm going to dip down the lights. Oops, wrong way. Now, you see it? That I call the fabric of life. And they have all these little fibers, and you have all that little black stuff, and they have the little red stuff, and then there's going to be all these holes here and there, like you see there's blood vessels. You see it? Well, that's not an accident. This is the side of the head that was basically crushed, so we're seeing the blood vessels. This is the other side of the head where we have the fabric of the feathers. All right, this is the side that was sticking up. Okay. The other side, I believe a lot of these holes, I don't think these are holes, those are, well, let's go down and see what we got. That air holes. Yeah. But this is the fabric of life. I mean, I'm sorry, that's just what it is. I'll show you my giant footprints and all this stuff. And this is the other side that was the down side. But it also has, it's the same fabric. Now, let's look at the no-toes. Hold on a second. Alright, this is from a new species that we discovered. I call it the no-toes. I discovered this on my property, and since I posted it, everybody's got them. They're everywhere. Now, this is the bone part here, this essential bone that comes down into the top of the foot. Now, it's called a no-toe because it has no toes on the outside. Now, I'll show you what it looks like down here. That's the microscopic shot, and this is where blood flows, and that is the black vein blood. And you see, here's the no-toe. Whoops, where is it? There it is, right there. Now, this is the foot, and that I showed you where the bone was here. Right here, you have a tibia, and then you have a fibula. We have. Now, this did too, because they came down just like this, and I have a ton of these, so it's not just a one-off thing. Now, this is where the toes are. They're inside, but you cannot see them. Now, this is the exact same fabric that we were looking at before. And I will show you it in two variations. One is where it's been sort of separated and eroded, and one is where it hasn't been. Now, let's take a look at this over here. Oops. Alright, that black stuff there, don't worry about that. That was my mistake. I splashed something on there. Now, this... You want to see something that's cool? This is from one of my no-toes. That is the surface, and it's coated like that. And this is literally identical to my belt. I'm not kidding you. Watch this. Alright, now that's the no-toe. Don't forget, I think I showed it to you before. And the toes are in here, but you can't find them. Now, I'm going to show you my belt in the camera. Watch this. You know what? Let me find a good spot. You see that? That's my belt. Now, it changes. As you go down, like I'm sliding it down, down. You see, it changes a little bit. Now, if I get to one of the very ends or the other, it must be where it wraps around the stomach of the creature and then gets up the sides or that type of thing. You see that? It's virtually the same thing. I'm going down. Yeah. It looks like I must be a 400-inch waist, but that's not true. This is only a 34-inch belt. So you see that? Now look. It changes. It gets different and different. Now I'm going to get out towards where the holes are. You see how now I'm in a whole different area, but this is still the fibers of the tissue of the cowhide. I mean, that's what it says. It says right here. Hold on. Genuine leather. Hold on, there's something else that says here. Oh, maybe not. China. I thought there was something else on here. Oh, I don't know. But anyway, this is, it's split cowhide, I believe. Genuine leather 65-34, 85 over 34. I don't know if that means anything. But I can tell you what, it's pretty damn close to what we were looking at before on the no-toe. Now, I have these, this is the fabric of life. Everything has this exact same fabric on there. And I have things that have come through space with this exact same fabric. Before we go to my stuff, you see that? The straps coming down the tendons? We could see that on the other foot. You can see all of these different, I mean, this is extremely detailed anatomy, and it's all there. I have studied this stuff inside and out. Everything I am presenting, I can stand behind. Okay, remember this now. I say that vein blood is black like that, and that is on the other side of the big toe. All right? And I also say that these are the tendinous straps that run down to the toes, quite obviously. Now, I also will show you something else right now. Okay, now, this is something that's very, very, I mean, the detail in the book I have here is absolutely phenomenal. This is my no-toe. You see that strip right there? You see that? That's from blood. Guess what? You see this right here? I don't know if you can see that. You can see that? It's the same thing. That's the same thing as that right here. All right, now these are no-toes. That was before us, as far as I can tell. There's no toes in these, and we got a lot of these. It's not just one of these. I got a lot of these. Tish has tons. Everybody has them. And they come in little feet, and they come in big feet. Big feet, little feet, middle feet, gigantic foots, huge, humongous foots. They're everywhere and cannot be denied. I'm going to show you the leathery substance that's on there is identical to my belt. Okay, this is the no-toe, and we're going to be looking at this spot right here, which is just the skin, basically, and that covers it. It's encased, and the toes are inside here, and they're movable. But the total structure of the thing is completely different than inside of our feet. This has springs instead of tendons. All right, this is the no-toe, and that is the skin. And I'm going to bring up the light a little bit, and you'll see. You see the little pore, whoops. You see all, let me focus it in again. You just move even the tiniest bit and everything goes out. All right, you're going to see a bunch of little tiny pores here and there. Those are all blood vessels. And that shiny stuff is the literally shined up leather, just like the leather that would be on your belt. And I will show you my belt, and you're going to have a hard time telling the difference. I do. All right, so I showed you that is the no-toe. That's the no-toe right there that we're looking at now. And I'm going to show you my belt. All right, here's my belt. It's virtually the same. The fibers are the same. Those are the fibers of life. And, you know, as I'm going to get it brighter and brighter, and you'll see. That's what we're looking at in everything. And you're going to be able to see this in that right there. You will be able to see the things that I have just shown. And this will be vein blood, and it will be black, and it will be Fe2O2 instead of Fe2O3, and you may be able to find some red blood in here. But if you noticed in the, you know, I believe that that's red blood right there. I'm almost certain you're going to be able to find red blood there, and I believe this is probably vein blood here. But wherever you see the red and holes, obviously there's some kind of a vein, and if it's red, it's an artery. I mean, it looks like an artery to me. Now, if that is, I mean, this stuff can be tested now. I was the first one, I believe, in the world to have DNA tested on ancient human beings. And the one I showed you, or will show you, of my ancient fingertip, and it's 3 feet long. It's as good, it's fully the size of this or more, or bigger. This toe, if it's 3 feet long, is probably going to be very similar to my toe. I mean, my fingertip. Now, I think my fingertip is bigger than the creature that would have this foot, because the fingertip itself is 3 feet long. Now, this, I don't think, I was trying to judge how tall that would be. I'm trying to go by the size of the fence. Is it a 6-foot fence? If it is, then that would be 12, 13 feet tall, which would make it, you know, a good 3-footer or so, which would go along with what I have, because mine is huge. It's just gigantic. And there's no question mine's real, because mine's been DNA certified. And I know that can be done too. And all that stuff scares me a little bit. But, you know, to prove a point, it's got to be proven. It's got to be done. Someone's going to do it. But somebody can walk up there and look at this tissue and see that what I'm saying is correct. I'd bring a little water bottle, spray it on there, take a look at that, bring one of these little cameras. You can get these things pretty reasonable now. You know, this is a better one. This is a Celestron. But you can buy these little ones like this. And they plug right into your laptop, or I don't know, maybe even a cell phone will give you a good enough picture of the detail of that fabric.